The trees of hope will become verdant. The copper of scorn and derision will be transmuted into the gold of honor and praise. The arid desert of ignorance will be transformed into the luxuriant garden of knowledge. The threatening clouds shall be dispelled, and the stars of faith and charity will again twinkle in the clear heaven of consciousness. Abdul Baha, Star of the West, Volume 5, 1914.
Thank you very much, dear Sandra. Thank you for sharing those beautiful words with us. A huge welcome to everyone joining us from around the world as we go deeper into the greatest story ever told, one that's known as the Dawnbreakers Nabil's narrative. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a brief recap of the events that we covered in our last session. Vahid is still in Shiraz. While he's in Shiraz, we know someone by the name of Haji Sayyid Javed Karbala'i meets the Bab through the Bab's uncle. He also meets His Holiness Baha'u'llah. He then goes to Khorasan. This man is an incredible man, given the title Sayyid al-Nur, the Sayyid of Light. This is the guy who's walking along. He waves to the king and he says, "Hello, king." They have a conversation, and the king comments about how amazing this guy is. Some of the people who are close to the king say, "Oh, why are you talking to him? He's a Babi." And the king at that point notes, why are all the people that are nice Babis? A little point that's made. We then learn about someone by the name of Sheikh Sultana Karbala'i. Now, he was one of the leading ulamas. He was the same person who went to search for Baha'u'llah and Soleimani when Baha'u'llah was up in the mountains. We know that his daughter married the brother of Baha'u'llah, Mirza Musa Agha Karim. He became ill when he wanted to go and meet the Bab. He was ill, and the Bab said, "Don't worry, I'm going to come and meet you." So he, along with the Ethiopian servant, they went in the middle of the night to go and visit him. He met him, and Sheikh Sultana Karbala'i said to the Bab, "Please let me be a martyr, I beg you, let me be a martyr." The Bab said, "I also will be a martyr in this cause." The Bab then goes on to say to him, "You will meet him whom God shall make manifest," alluding to this person who will fulfill the role that Baha'u'llah would then go on to fulfill. He had his eyes wide open, he was so excited. At one point he thought this was Tahireh that was actually the one that God will make manifest, and another time someone by the name of Sayyid Ulav. Eventually, while he's up in Karbala, he's back in Karbala, he then sees Baha'u'llah, and boom, it's all understood, it's all done. We also know that the Bab writes a will, and he gives all his possessions to both his mother and his wife. And it's said that once his mother passes away, the possessions will then go on to his wife. The mum of the Bab didn't believe in the Bab's mission. She wasn't a follower. It was only later, when she was in Baghdad, Baha'u'llah sent two people, one Haji Sayyid Javed Karbala'i, and also the wife of Abdul Majid Shirazi. So if you remember the story of Abdul Wahab, this boy who follows Ali Bastami, the second letter of the living, and he's beaten severely by the dad Abdul Majid. This person's wife later on is the one who goes and teaches the mother of the Bab about the faith. The mother of the Bab becomes a Babi. We then learn a little bit about the wife of the Bab, who's described as only second in relation to Tahireh. There was no woman greater in the Babi dispensation, bar Tahireh. The Bab then explained to his wife exactly what was going to happen, that they were going to be separated. The Bab then also reveals a very special prayer for her and says, "Look, when you're in times of trouble, just say this prayer and this will give you the strength." The Bab then moves to his maternal uncle's house, Haji Sayyid Mirza Ali. While he's there, Hussein Khan is getting very annoyed. Now, Hussein Khan, as we know, is the governor of Shiraz. So whilst in Shiraz, Hussein Khan, the governor who had ordered the Bab to be slapped in the face and his turban gets knocked off, he gets very annoyed about all these people coming and he's worried about potentially losing his power. So he comes up with this plan. This plan is to get somebody by the name of Abdul Hamid Khan to go to the uncle of the Bab's house and essentially kidnap the Bab. He goes in through the roof, down with some turbans, grabs the Bab, and he's told to grab any of the books or anything that's there. The Bab is there with none other than Sayyid Kazim Zanjani, not to be confused with Sayyid Kazim al-Rashidi. And he grabs the Bab and says, "Right, Bab, come with me." As he goes out into the streets, he finds that there's people screaming, yes, there's been an outbreak of cholera. Hussein Khan has ran away to the Baghatah. He's just disappeared because of all this commotion. So Abdul Hamid Khan takes him back to his house, only to find his son dying. Abdul Hamid Khan begs the Bab, "Please do something." The Bab says, "Take some of my ablution waters, I'll wash my hands and face, take some of this water, give it to your son to drink." The son drinks it, and sure enough, the son is absolutely fine. He then tells Hussein Khan, who's slightly blown away, and he says, "Right, fine, I don't know what you're doing, but just leave, just get out of Shiraz. We don't want any of this stuff here." The other person that was with the Bab, as I mentioned, Sayyid Kazim Zanjani. His brother was somebody known as Sayyid Murtaza, who was one of the 7 martyrs of Tehran. Sayyid Kazim Zanjani, he actually dies in Mazandaran later. He becomes a martyr. Then we go on to chapter 10, which deals with the Bab's sojourn in Esfahan. So the Bab is going from Shiraz to Esfahan. Now the Bab had told his uncle that he's going to be going, and in 1846, in Esfahan, alongside Sayyid Kazim Zanjani, the Bab is arriving to Esfahan. The Bab writes a letter to none other than the governor, the Mu'tamed Dole. Manusher Khan writes him a letter and says to him, look, we're coming. The governor receives this letter, is profoundly impressed, and then says to the highest clergyman in Isfahan, the Imam Jame, you will be the person who will host the Bab. So the Bab is then hosted in his house. While he's there, the Imam Jame really likes him. He likes him so much and reveres the Bab so much, despite him having a higher station as far as the rankings of Islam go, with him being a clergyman and this Imam Jame. He even paused the ewer to allow the water to come out for the Bab to do his ablutions, which was a great sign of respect, a huge, huge sign of respect. The Imam Jame requests the Surah Val-Ashr to be explained. Now, this Surah Val-Ashr is very beautiful, and maybe after the recap, I'll go into exactly what the Surah Val-Ashr is, just a little bit about it. But it's something that Sheikh Ahmad had spoken about, and Baha'u'llah and the Aghdas had spoken about this mystery of the great reversal. He asked the Bab to do this. The Bab does it, and Imam Jama is so impressed, he drops and starts kissing his feet. He's so blown away. Mullah Muhammad Taghiya Harati was also there, who was so blown away, and he says that this translation on the Surah Val-Ashr actually is greater than the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, cutting the moon in 2. This is what it's claimed, that he's cut the moon in 2. Absolutely blown away by this. The Bab is in the house of the governor, the Mu'tamed Manusher Khan, and here he asks him to expand on the Nobabat Khasis, which is to do with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his specific station, his specific mission. The Bab does this. The governor is absolutely blown away. The governor, who was of Christian background, really, who had taken on Islam because it was the thing to do. He wasn't a firm believer in Islam. After hearing this explanation by the Bab, is blown away and is like, right, I'm in, I believe. He now says that this explanation of the Bab has now brought him close into Islam. Unfortunately, a lot of the ulama, the clergy, are getting very jealous of the power of the Bab. They're not happy with what they see. Also, the Prime Minister hears about this up in Tehran. He is really worried that the Bab and the king may meet, and Haji Mirza Aghazی, the Prime Minister, one of the antichrists of the Baha'i revelation, is going to lose his power. So he writes a letter to all the clergymen and says, look, clergy, desist from seeing the Bab. He writes to the Imam Jame, who the Bab was staying at his house previously, and says, look, don't go and see them, do anything you can. The Imam Jame is a little bit stuck because he likes the Bab, but he also likes his job. He likes his money, so he doesn't really know what to do in this situation. A whole bunch of people don't go to this meeting. People are now desisting from going. The governor invited a bunch of people, including Haji Sayyid Asadullah. Now, Haji Sayyid Asadullah, if you'll remember, when Sayyid Kazim asked somebody to go on a specific mission to win the support from 2 clergymen, one of them was none other than Haji Sayyid Muhammad Baghir Rashti, who was living in Isfahan at the time. He had taken the faith. Mullah Hussain had taught him the faith before. His son now, Haji Sayyid Asadullah, is the person in charge. He is invited to the governor's house to meet the Bab. However, he refuses to do it, says, no, I'm not going to do it. There were a bunch of other people who didn't want to do it. One of the people who went was Muhammad Mehdi, who asked the Lord to expound on some of the laws of Islam. The Bab beautifully expounds, and he just tries to pick a fight with the Bab and starts getting rude with His Holiness the Bab. He's then asked by Manusher Khan to leave. Mullah Muhammad Taghiya Harati, who was there when the Surah Val-Ashr was revealed, and he says it's greater than the cutting of the moon. He ends up translating one of the tablets for the Bab, but later on he turns away from the faith. We then have our final story, which involves Abdul Baha's to-be father-in-law's brother, somebody by the name of Mirza Ibrahim. And Mirza Ibrahim is hosting the Bab. At this meeting, we have the beloved of martyrs and the king of martyrs, these 2 brothers, which is such a beautiful story, which we'll go into later on. They're 9 years old, they're 11 years old, they're serving the Bab tea. Mirza Ibrahim then says to the Bab, he says, look, my brother, Mullah Ali Nahri, and him and his wife will have a baby, but they're not able to conceive. The Bab then takes a portion of his food and says, give this to them to eat, and sure enough, they will have a baby. Of course, they do have a baby, and Abdul Baha ends up becoming her husband. I'm going to touch slightly on something I discussed, this Surah Val-Ashr. as to exactly what this is. And I'm going to do my best to try and go into it and explain it. It's a lot more complicated than I'm going to lay out for you, but I'll do my best to try and get the basics. Now, Val-Ash, or Wal-Ash as it would be in Arabic, the guidance transliterated it to the V. This has an abjad value of 6. Now, Val-Ash starts with a V, and the letter is pronounced Vav. Just like the letter W is pronounced W, and you spell W, D-O-U-B-L-E, if you were to write out the word W, what you do is you look at this first letter of the word, Vav, and this is how you would spell it. This here is Vav. This that I'm highlighting right here is the letter V, is pronounced Vav. But if you were to write the word for the letter, you'd write V-A-V. That spells Vav, okay? So we know this is a Vav. This is an Aleph, a particular Aleph, Aleph at Ghaim, an Aleph that stands vertical. And this is another upside down V. So V-A-V spells Vav, and that's the first letter of the Surah of Al-Ash. Now, this is something that Sheikh Ahmad talks about. And it says this is what the Bab, essentially, the Ghaim, when he comes in, he's going to bring in a new cycle, a complete new cycle. And by this, I'm talking about the cycles that we have. We had the Adamic cycle that existed for 6,000 years. And then for another 500,000 years is the start of the new cycle. So Sheikh Ahmad says that the Ghaim, the Bab, is the one who's going to stand in the middle of the old cycle and the new cycle. We know that Baha'u'llah in the Kitab al-Aqdas talks about the mystery of great reversal. And this is what this all comes down to in this explanation of Vav. So Vav here, as I said, this is an abjad value of 6, which refers to the 6,000 years that we've had in our previous cycle, from Adam all the way up to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, being the final one. Then we have His Holiness the Bab standing here as the Aleph, and then we have this upside down Vav. And this upside down Vav, remember Baha'u'llah talks about the mystery of great reversal. This actually, if you see, it covers the entire thing. It starts here and it goes all the way to the end. And this is what will last for 500,000 years, this next cycle that we're going to have. So it's very interesting, and part of the reason it's upside down, this mystery of great reversal, is to also signify and show that things are going to be turned on their head. The whole world is going to be turned on their head. The peasants will be on the same level, and the kings, things will start to topple, and things will start to turn. There's a complete transformation that's going to take place. But that's a little explanation about this Vav, the Surah of Val-Ash. It's an incredibly difficult to understand Arabic, even beyond my level. No, I'm joking, I can't even read. But it's a phenomenal level. It's a phenomenal standard, so I'm told, by our scholar, Dr. Fernand Apazi.
Just to say that Vav Aleph, Vav, as you wrote it, it's 13, and 13 is Ahad, and Ahad is the unicity of God, and not only of God, of all the universe. Vav is 6, Aleph is 1, another Vav is 6, so 6 and 6 and 1, it's 13, and 13 is Ahad.
Which is the unity of God and the unity of things. Is that
yes.
What you're saying?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
But there are thousands of things to say. But
thank you very much, dear Patrick. Yeah, there are indeed many things to say. As I say, it's a huge document which I've sent to you, dear Patrick. So
thank you.
Hope you delve into that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if there are no further comments or questions.
Excuse me, yes. Until now, I understood that Bob was equivalent to 5.
Yes. That's still the case, dear Mr. Kushakzadeh. The abjad value of the Bab is equivalent to 5.
Dave, I have a question.
Bethel, please, yes.
It's difficult for me to follow you.
Shall I speak in French?
No. Oui, oh, can you speak in French? Would be wonderful.
Je vais manger le pamplemousse avec mon frère dans la salle de bain. What I speak in French is nonsense, unfortunately.
No. In English, it's just fine. Dave?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
I just wanted to ask about this cutting of the moon in two.
The significance of that is to go on the other side of the physical world. It's to go from the sublunar world to the metaphysical world. So you have to break the moon to pass through, to go on the other side. Only a symbol.
To get from under the moon to above the moon to the outside, you cut the moon into two.
Yeah. To go in the real sky. Beautiful. Okay. But it's only a symbol, huh?
It's symbolic.
Because, yes, it's symbolic. It's on everything inside of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. A dear Muslim and dear Baha'i friend, they were talking together and they were joking around, and the Muslim friend said to the Baha'i, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, cut the moon in two. What did your Baha'u'llah ever do? And the Baha'i responded, well, Baha'u'llah put it back together.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're just good friends joking around. Anyway, right. Mr. Zina Bahrami, if you're ready, please take us away. Thank you so much.
The high honors accorded to the Bab served further to inflame the hostility of the ulamas of Isfahan. With feelings of dismay, they beheld on every side evidences of his all-pervasive influence invading the stronghold of orthodoxy and subverting their foundations. They summoned a gathering at which they issued a written document, signed and sealed by all the ecclesiastical leaders of the city, condemning the Bab to death. They all concurred in this condemnation with the exception of Haji Sayyid Asadullah and Haji Muhammad Jafari Abadi, both of whom refused to associate themselves with the contents of so glaringly abusive a document. The Imam Jomeh, though declining to endorse the death warrant of the Bab, was induced by reason of his extreme cowardice and ambition to add to that document in his own handwriting the following testimony. I testify that in the course of my association with this youth, I have been unable to discover any act that would in any way betray his repudiation of the doctrines of Islam. On the contrary, I have known him as a pious and loyal observer of its precepts. The extravagance of his claims, however, and his disdainful contempt for the things of the world incline me to believe that he is devoid of reason and judgment. No sooner had the Mu'tamid been informed of the condemnation pronounced by the ulamas of Isfahan than he determined, by a plan which he himself conceived, to nullify the effects of that cruel verdict. He issued immediate instructions that towards the hour of sunset, the Bab, escorted by 500 horsemen of the governor's own mounted bodyguard, should leave the gate of the city and proceed in the direction of Tehran. Imperative orders had been given that at the completion of each farsang, now a farsang is the distance a man can travel in an hour.
A laden mule can travel about 4.18 miles. Depends where you go. Different parts of the world, it's slightly different. Some of the mules are a bit stronger.
Yeah. Yes, and of course, if it's uphill or downhill, it depends. Exactly. At the completion of each farsang, 100 of this mounted escort should return directly to Isfahan. To the chief of the last remaining contingent, a man in whom he placed implicit confidence, the Mu'tamid confidentially intimated his desire that at every Maidan, 20 of the remaining 100 should likewise be ordered by him to return to the city. Of the 20 remaining horsemen, the Mu'tamid directed that 10 should be dispatched to Ardistan for the purpose of collecting the taxes levied by the government, and that the rest, all of whom should be of his tried and most reliable men, should, by an unfrequented route, bring the Bab back in disguise to Isfahan. They were, moreover, instructed so to regulate their march that before dawn of the ensuing day, the Bab should have arrived at Isfahan and should have been delivered into his custody. This plan was immediately taken in hand and duly executed. At an unsuspected hour, the Bab re-entered the city, was directly conducted to the private residence of the Mu'tamid, known by the name of Emarat al-Khurshid, and was introduced through a side entrance reserved for the Mu'tamid himself into his private apartments. The governor waited in person on the Bab, served his meals, and provided whatever was required for his comfort and safety. Meanwhile, the wildest conjectures obtained currency in the city regarding the journey of the Bab to Tehran. the sufferings which he was made to endure on his way to the capital, the verdict which had been pronounced against him, and the penalty which he had suffered. These rumors greatly distressed the believers who were residing in Isfahan. The Mu'tamid, who was well aware of their grief and anxiety, interceded with the Bab in their behalf and begged to be allowed to introduce them into his presence. The Bab addressed a few words in his own handwriting to Mullah Abdul Karim Qazvini, who had taken up his quarters in the Madraseh Nimawad, and instructed the Mu'tamid to send it to him by a trusted messenger. An hour later, Mullah Abdul Karim was ushered into the presence of the Bab. Of his arrival, no one except the Mu'tamid was informed. He received from his master some of his writings and was instructed to transcribe them in collaboration with Sayyid Hussein Yazdi and Sheikh Hassan Zunuzi. To these he soon returned, bearing the welcome news of the Bab's well-being and safety. Of all the believers residing in Isfahan, these three alone were allowed to see him. One day, while seated with the Bab in his private garden within the courtyard of his house, the Mu'tamid, taking his guest into his confidence, addressed him in these words: "The Almighty Giver has endowed me with great riches. I know not how best to use them. Now that I have, by the aid of God, been led to recognize this revelation, it is my ardent desire to consecrate all my possessions to the furtherance of its interests and the spread of its fame. It is my intention to proceed by your leave to Tehran and to do my best to win to this cause Muhammad Shah, whose confidence in me is firm and unshaken. I am certain that he will eagerly embrace it and will arise to promote it far and wide. I will also endeavor to induce the Shah to dismiss the profligate Haji Mirza Aghasi, the folly of whose administration has well nigh brought this land to the verge of ruin. Next, I will strive to obtain for you the hand of one of the sisters of the Shah, and will myself undertake the preparation of your nuptials. Finally, I hope to be enabled to incline the hearts of the rulers and kings of the earth to this most wondrous cause, and to extirpate every lingering trace of that corrupt ecclesiastical hierarchy that has stained the fair name of Islam." "May God requite you for your noble intentions," the Bab replied. "So lofty a purpose is to me ever more precious than the act itself. Your days and mine are numbered, however. They are too short to enable me to witness and allow you to achieve the realization of your hopes. Not by the means which you fondly imagine will an almighty providence accomplish the triumph of his faith. Through the poor and lowly of this land, by the blood which these shall have shed in his path, will the omnipotent sovereign ensure the preservation and consolidate the foundation of his cause. That same God will, in the world to come, place upon your head the crown of immortal glory, and will shower upon you his inestimable blessings. Of the span of your earthly life, there will remain only 3 months and 9 days, after which you shall, with faith and certitude, hasten to your eternal abode." The Mu'tamid greatly rejoiced at these words. Resigned to the will of God, he prepared himself for the departure which the words of the Bab had so clearly foreshadowed. He wrote his testament, settled his private affairs, and bequeathed whatever he possessed to the Bab. Immediately after his death, however, his nephew, the rapacious Gorgin Khan, discovered and destroyed his will, seized his property, and contemptuously ignored his wishes.
The ulama, the clergy of the time in Isfahan, had basically had enough of what was happening with the Bab. That the Bab had this station, he was staying at the governor's house, being treated with royalty. The governor was preparing his food, his drink, and everything. And they just have enough. They're like, no, look, we can't put up with this. They end up getting together, banding together, and having a death warrant signed for the Bab. They had planned to have the Bab executed to get rid of it. Now, even the son of Haji Muhammad Bagir Rashdi, this eminent clergyman who had accepted Sheikh Ahmad and Saad Kazim previously, his son, Sayyid Asadullah, he who refused to go and see the Bab because of what's happening, even he turned around and said, I'm not signing this. This is absolute nonsense. I'm not down with this at all. There were a couple of other people as well who refused to sign it. The Imam Jameh, who was so in love with the Bab, he didn't sign this, but he did write something saying that, look, I found the Bab to not be against Islam, and he hasn't said anything too crazy, apart from some crazy claims that he's making about maybe being this intermediary or being this gate, something. So he said, I think the Bab is unstable in mind. So they league together and decide to have the Bab killed, the petition they're putting together. Manusher Khan, the governor of Isfahan, who's in love with the Bab, starts to react very quickly. He says, right, I've got a plan. What we're going to do is we're going to pretend that we're sending the Bab out to Tehran. And we're going to get 500 horsemen, and we're going to start making our way up to go up, basically send the Bab away. So everyone's going to see, imagine 500 horses all going. Every so often, 100 of them are going to peel back. They're going to turn around. So the numbers get less and less and less as they're going along. He then says that when it gets down to the last 20, 10 of them are going to go to Ardistan and go and collect taxes. The other 10 are by an unfrequented route. They're going to bring the Bab back via here into the house of the governor, Manusher Khan. So he's going to go into the private house, and it's all done in secret. The idea is to pretend in Isfahan that the Bab has indeed been taken away. And he stays in Manusher Khan's house, which is known as the Emirat Khorshid. He stays there, and he's trying to keep the Bab safe. There, no one could meet him. It was all secret, apart from Mullah Abdul Karim, who was the one who transcribed a lot of the writings of the Bab, and the one who had the dream of the Bab saying, are you seeking the manifestation over the year 60? He is allowed also Sayyid Husseini Yazdi and Sheikh Hassan al-Zunsi, who were two of the amanuenses. So these guys were transcribing for His Holiness the Bab. The governor then plans all this stuff. Manusher Khan, he comes up with this plan and says, look, here's what I'm going to do, right? Okay, I'm going to give you all of my wealth, all right? And we're going to push the Babi faith. I'm also going to go up and I'm going to see Muhammad Shah. I'm going to see the king, and I'm going to have a conversation with him, and I'm going to win him round to your cause, and then he can push the cause. I'm also going to have Haji Mirza Agassi, the Prime Minister, sacked. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the hand of the sister of one of the wives of the king, and I will personally do the ceremony. So if you marry the sister of the king, you'll be fine, you'll be safe. The Bab lovingly looks back at him and says, thank you so much for coming up with this plan. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to be dead in 3 months and 9 days. Manusher Khan's like, what? What do you mean? The Bab says, no, that's not why. You unfortunately are going to pass away. The time is not going to be. So the Bab predicts when he's going to pass away. And he says, don't worry. He also says that the faith is not going to grow through these big acts of one person giving all the money. It's going to be through the poor that it's going to go. When Manusher Khan, the governor, dies, he writes his will. And in his will, he basically gives all his belongings to the Bab. Are they going to go to the Bab? Absolutely not. We've got the nephew, Gurgin Khan, who comes in once the governor dies, once Manusher Khan dies, he takes all this stuff and completely ignores his wishes. And this is the nephew. Why is Gurgin Khan doing this? Is he personally against the Bab? I imagine probably not. But bear in mind, it's a thing of power. He knows that Haji Mirza Agassi, the Prime Minister, doesn't want him around. This letter has gone around. He knows that a lot of the clergy in Isfahan are very much against the Bab.
As the days of his earthly life were drawing to a close, the Mu'tamid increasingly sought the presence of the Bab, and in his hours of intimate fellowship with him obtained a deeper realization of the spirit which animated his faith. As the hour of my departure approaches, he one day told the Bab, I feel an undefinable joy pervading my soul, but I am apprehensive for you. I tremble at the thought of being compelled to leave you to the mercy of so ruthless a successor as Gurgin Khan. You will no doubt discover your presence in this home, and will, I fear, grievously ill-treat you. Fear not, remonstrated the Bab. I have committed myself into the hands of God. My trust is in him. Such is the power which he has bestowed upon me, that if it be my wish, I can convert these very stones into gems of inestimable value, and can instill into the heart of the most wicked criminal the loftiest conceptions of uprightness and duty. Of my own will, I have chosen to be afflicted by my enemies, that God might accomplish the thing destined to be done. As those precious hours flew by, a sense of overpowering devotion, of increased consciousness, of nearness to God filled the heart of the Mu'tamid. In his eyes, the world's pomp and pageantry melted away into insignificance when brought face to face with the internal realities enshrined in the revelation of the Bab. His vision of its glories, its infinite potentialities, its incalculable blessings grew in vividness as he increasingly realized the vanity of earthly ambition and the limitations of human endeavor. He continued to ponder these thoughts in his heart until the time when a slight attack of fever, which lasted but one night, suddenly terminated his life. Serene and confident, he winged his flight to the great beyond. As the life of the Mu'tamid was approaching its end, the Bab summoned to his presence Sayyid Hossein Yazdi and Mullah Abdul Karim, acquainted them with the nature of his prediction to his host, and bade them to tell the believers who had gathered in the city to scatter throughout Kashan, Qom, and Tehran, and await whatever providence in his wisdom might choose to decree. A few days after the death of the Mu'tamid, a certain person who was aware of the design which he had conceived and carried out for the protection of the Bab informed his successor Gurgin Khan of the actual residence of the Bab in the Emirat Khurshid and described to him the honors which his predecessor had lavished upon his guest in the privacy of his own home. On the receipt of this unexpected intelligence, Gurgin Khan dispatched his messenger to Tehran and instructed him to deliver in person the following message to Muhammad Shah. 4 months ago, it was generally believed in Isfahan that, in pursuance of your Majesty's imperial summons, the Mu'tamid Dawleh, my predecessor, had sent the Sayyid Bab to the seat of your Majesty's government. It has now been disclosed that this same Sayyid is actually occupying the Emirat Khurshid, the private residence of the Mu'tamid Dawleh. It has been ascertained that my predecessor himself extended the hospitality of his home to the Sayyid Bab and sedulously guarded that secret from both the people and the officials of this city. Whatever it pleases your Majesty to decree, I unhesitatingly pledge myself to perform. The Shah, who was firmly convinced of the loyalty of the Mu'tamid, realized when he received this message that the late governor's sincere intention had been to await a favorable occasion when he could arrange a meeting between him and the Bab, and that his sudden death had interfered with the execution of that plan. He issued an imperial mandate summoning the Bab to the capital. In his written message to Gurgin Khan, the Shah commanded him to send the Bab in disguise in the company of a mounted escort, headed by Mohammed Bege Chaparchi, the sect of the Aliullahi, to Tehran, to exercise the utmost consideration towards him in the course of his journey and strictly maintain the secrecy of his departure. Gurgin Khan went immediately to the Bab and delivered into his hands the written mandate of the sovereign. He then summoned Mohammed Beg, conveyed to him the behests of Muhammad Shah, and ordered him to undertake immediate preparations for the journey. Beware, he warned him, lest anyone discover his identity or suspect the nature of your mission. No one but you, not even the members of his escort, should be allowed to recognize him. Should anyone question you regarding him, say that he is a merchant with whom we have been instructed to conduct to the capital, and of whose identity we are completely ignorant. Soon after midnight, the Bab, in accordance with these instructions, set out from the city and proceeded in the direction of Tehran.
His Holiness the Bab, after he explains to Manusha Khan, the governor, what's going to happen to him, he then says, I have chosen to be inflicted by my enemy. The governor, Manusha Khan, the Mu'tamid, as he's known as the Mu'tamid Dawleh, he eventually is killed by a horrible fever. He's suddenly gone. The Bab, we know, then gets his amanuensis, Sayyid Hossein Yazdi and Mullah Abdul Karim to come in, record all of this, and pass the message round. Also to send people to Kashan, Qom, Tehran. So he's telling people to spread now. It's time to go. Things are getting very dangerous. Gurgin Khan, who's now the new governor of Isfahan, the nephew of Manusha Khan, he decides again he wants to curry favor with the king and the prime minister, and he sends a letter and he says, look, oh my God, I found out that the Bab was staying there. I know this, the Bab's staying there, blah, blah, blah. He curries favor with them. The king finds out and he's very confused because he knew the previous governor of Isfahan, Manusha Khan, to be this incredible guy who he very much loved. He then realizes that there was a plan that was trying to be conceived by the governor to send the Bab up from Isfahan to Tehran. He then sends a letter to Gurgin Khan and he says, right, I want you to get Muhammad Bege Chaparchi, who belonged to the sect of the Aliullahi. Now, the Aliullahi, very briefly, is a subsect of Shia Islam. And they very much believe that the Imam Ali, who was the son-in-law and cousin of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is arguably equal to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or even greater in some cases. It depends on how you understand it. But the main point I'm trying to make is that Imam Ali is incredibly important to them. Of course, the Bab, being a Sayyid, who's a descendant of Prophet Muhammad and comes down through His Holiness Ali as well, is someone that these guys are possibly going to look favourable upon as things transpire. Very interesting, this Muhammad Beg chapter actually, who's going to be taking the Bab on his journey up to Tehran. That's the plan anyway. The king says, make sure it's done under disguise. He says, I don't want anyone to understand what's going, but bring him up to Tehran. Let's settle this once and for all.
Sorry, Dave, do we know how he passed away? I may have missed that section if we read it already.
It was a fever. It just says it was a fever. I'm guessing it wasn't COVID-19, but it was a fever, a horrible fever. The Babs stay in Kashan. Now, Kashan is this beautiful place over here, and this is where this entire chapter, pretty much, which is all about the Babs stay in Kashan. I'm very blessed, and I found out only after studying the Dawn Breakers that this gentleman in yellow, Haji Mirza Jani, surnamed Parapar, he is my great-great-granddad. And he's the one who it said will have super handsome grandchildren in the future. And as Sina Bahrami pointed out, we're still waiting for these people to appear. So I think I haven't reached my peak yet, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully it is on its way. But this is my story of my great-great-granddad receiving His Holiness the Bab.
The Babs stay in Kashan. On the eve of the Bab's arrival at Kashan, Haji Mirza Jani, surnamed Parapar, a noted resident of that city, dreamed that he was standing at a late hour in the afternoon at the gate of Attar, one of the gates of the city, when his eye suddenly beheld the Bab on horseback wearing, instead of his customary turban, the kolah, usually worn by the merchants of Persia. Before him, as well as behind him, marched a number of horsemen into whose custody he seemed to have been delivered. As they approached the gate, the Bab saluted him and said, Haji Mirza Jani, we are to be your guest for 3 nights. Prepare yourselves to receive us. When he awoke, the vividness of his dream convinced him of the reality of his vision. This unexpected apparition constituted in his eyes a providential warning, which he felt it is his duty to heed and observe. He accordingly set out to prepare his house for the reception of the visitor, and to provide whatever seemed necessary for his comfort. As soon as he had completed the preliminary arrangements for the banquet, which he had decided to offer the Bab, that night, Haji Mirza Jani proceeded to the gate of Attar, and there waited for the signs of the Bab's expected arrival. At the appointed hour, as he was scanning the horizon, he described in the distance what seemed to him a company of horsemen approaching the gate of the city. As he hastened to meet him, his eyes recognized the Bab, surrounded by his escort, dressed in the same clothes and wearing the same expression as he had seen the night before in his dream. Haji Mirza Jani joyously approached him and bent to kiss his stirrups. The Bab prevented him, saying, we are to be your guest for 3 nights. Tomorrow is the day of Nowruz. We shall celebrate it together in your home. Muhammad Beg, who had been riding close to the Bab, thought him to be an intimate acquaintance of Haji Mirza Jani. Turning to him, he said, I am ready to abide by whatever is the desire of the Sayyid Bab. I would ask you, however, to obtain the approval of my colleague, who shares with me the charge of conducting the Sayyid Bab to Tehran. Haji Mirza Jani submitted his request and was met with a flat refusal. I decline your suggestion, he was told. I have been most emphatically instructed not to allow this youth to enter any city until his arrival at the capital. I have been particularly commanded to spend the night outside of the gate of the city, to break my march at the hour of sunset, and to resume it the next day at the hour of dawn. I cannot depart from the orders that have been given to me. This gave rise to a heated altercation, which was eventually settled in favor of Muhammad Beg, who succeeded in inducing his opponent to deliver the Bab into the custody of Haji Mirza Jani, with the express understanding that on the 3rd morning he should safely deliver back his guest into their hands. Haji Mirza Jani, who had intended to invite to his home the entire escort of the Bab, was advised by him to abandon this intention. No one but you, he urged, should accompany me to your home. Haji Mirza Jani requested to be allowed to defray the expense of the horsemen's 3-day stay in Kashan. It is unnecessary, observed the Bab, but for my will, nothing whatever could have induced them to deliver me into your hands. All things lie prisoned within the grasp of his might. Nothing is impossible to him. He removes every difficulty and surmounts every obstacle. The horsemen were lodged in a caravanserai in the immediate neighborhood of the gate of the city. Muhammad Beg, following the instructions of the Bab, accompanied him until they drew near to the house of Haji Mirza Jani. Having ascertained the actual situation of the house, he returned and joined his companions. The night the Bab arrived in Kashan coincided with the eve preceding the third Nowruz after the declaration of his mission, which fell on the second day of the Rabi'u Thani in the year 1263 AH. On that same night, Sayyid Hossein Yazdi, who had previously, in accordance with the directions of the Bab, come to Kashan, was invited to the house of Haji Mirza Jani and introduced into the presence of his master. The Bab was dictating to him a tablet in honor of his host, when a friend of the latter, a certain Sayyid Abdul Baqi, who was noted in Kashan for his learning, arrived. The Bab invited him to enter, permitted him to hear the verses which he was revealing, but refused to disclose his identity. In the concluding passages of the tablets which he was addressing to Haji Mirza Jani, he prayed in his behalf, supplicated the Almighty to illumine his heart with the light of divine knowledge, and to unloose his tongue for the service and proclamation of his cause. Unschooled and unlettered though he was, Haji Mirza Jani was able, by virtue of this prayer, to impress with his speech even the most accomplished divine of Kashan. He became endowed with such power that he was able to silence every idle pretender who dared to challenge the precepts of his faith. Even the haughty and imperious Mullah Jafar Naraghi was unable, despite his consummate eloquence, to resist the force of his argument, and was compelled to acknowledge outwardly the merits of the cause of his adversary, though at heart he refused to believe in its truth. Sayyid Abdul Baqi sat and listened to the Bab. He heard his voice, watched his movements, looked upon the expression of his face, and noted the words which streamed unceasingly from his lips, and yet failed to be moved by their majesty and power. Wrapped in the veils of his own idle fancy and learning, he was powerless to appreciate the meaning of the utterances of the Bab. He did not even trouble to inquire the name or the character of the guest into whose presence he had been introduced. Unmoved by the things he had heard and seen, he retired from that presence, unaware of the unique opportunity which, through his apathy, he had irretrievably lost. A few days later, when informed of the name of the youth who he had treated with such careless indifference, he was filled with chagrin and remorse. It was too late, however, for him to seek his presence and atone for his conduct, for the Bab had already departed from Kashan. In his grief, he renounced the society of his fellow men and led to the end of his days a life of unrelieved seclusion. Among those who were privileged to meet the Bab in the home of Haji Mirza Jani was a man named Mehdi, who was destined at a later time in the year 1268 AH to suffer martyrdom in Tehran. He and a few others were, during those 3 days, affectionately entertained by Haji Mirza Jani, whose lavish hospitality earned him the praise and commendation of his master. To even the members of the Bab's escort, he extended the same loving kindness, and by his liberality and charm of manner, won their lasting gratitude. On the morning of the second day after Nowruz, he, mindful of his pledge, delivered the prisoner into their hands, and with a heart overflowing with grief, bade him a last and touching farewell.
One of the greatest stories in the Dawnbreakers, and I don't say that because I'm biased in any way, shape, or form. Ladies and gentlemen, this takes place in the city of Kashan. Now, Kashan, the town full of morals, essentially. Haji Mirza Jani Kashani, he has a dream. What does he see in his dream? He sees outside the gates of Attar in Kashan, he sees His Holiness, the Bab is coming. And he says to him, we are to be your guests for 3 nights. He then wakes up. He gets up and he says to his wife, Khanum, Balansha, like, darling, wake up. She's like, what is it? He said, look, I know this sounds crazy. His Holiness the Bab is coming to stay with us. And she says to him, listen, Johnny, what are you talking about? Not one of these pranks. He says, no, I'm being serious. Honestly, he's coming to stay with us. Make loads of food. Make garma sabzi, make kubida, make everything, all this food, make it. And she says, look, we've been through this before. If you want more food, just ask. You don't need to make up these elaborate stories. He says, no, I'm being serious. He says, all right. She says, look, I saw him. His Holiness the Bab. He's coming. He's coming to stay. And she says, well, what was this dream? And he says, well, there I was at the gates of Attar. I saw His Holiness the Bab coming with a whole bunch of horses. He was there. He was with his black turban. And she says, what? And he says, he was there. He was with his black turban. And he says, whoa. The Bab, Sayyid Bab, is a Sayyid. This means what? It means he's a prophet. He's a descendant of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. he must wear green. His turban would be green. It can't be black. Haji Mirza Jani Kashani says, well, it was black. It was definitely black. I don't know why. I hear what you're saying, but it was black. And she's like, look, is this a plan to get more kubida out of me? No, it's not. I promise you. I promise you. She then takes his word. She starts making the kubida, the gorma sabzi, all these beautiful foods. He then says, I'll be back. Don't eat any of the food. He then goes out to the gate of Attar, and he's standing there, and he's looking out. And what's he going to see? All of a sudden, there's some dust. As the dust starts to clear, you see horses are coming. And lo and behold, the figure that he'd seen in his dream in a black turban is there. He runs after him. He falls to his feet, tries to kiss the stirrups. The Bab grabs him and pulls him up and says, no, they hug each other, they embrace. So much so that Muhammad Beg Chaparchi, the guy who's in charge, assumes that they're long-lost friends. These two had never met each other before. He then says, I'm going to be a guest at your house for 3 nights. This is then asked to Muhammad Beg Chaparchi, is it okay? Can we go into Kashan? He says, look, it's no problem with me, but I better check with my colleague. The colleague says, no, I've been told that we have to stay outside the gates. We're not going to go in. A bit of a discussion takes place. Eventually, he's allowed to come in. My great-great-granddad, Haji Mirza Jani Kashani, says, look, everyone come. You're all welcome. Befam, I don't know if this was Persian Torah or there was a lot of kebab that was made, and maybe this is what he told his wife would happen. But the Bab says, you don't need to have them stay. Muhammad Beg Chaparchi comes and sees where the Bab's staying, and he stays there for 3 days and nights. While he stays there, Sayyid Hussein Yazdi was invited, listening to some of the things that the Bab was writing, and the Bab wrote a tablet to Haji Mirza Jani Kashani. Whilst he's doing this, we also know that another guy, Sayyid Abdul Baghi, is also invited. He, for some reason, doesn't quite understand what's going on. He hears the Bab talking really beautifully, but he just doesn't quite understand who this is. Only later does he understand who he was. And he's so grief-stricken that he actually met the Bab, didn't even ask who he was, even though he was like, yeah, this guy is good. But he ends up actually just becoming a recluse in society. He loses the plot. He can't take it anymore. Haji Mirza Jani Kashani, although unschooled, it says, so he's probably like the DJ of his time, like me. I've tried to follow in his footsteps. He can barely read or write. He is so blown away by what the Babs taught him. And actually, when he starts speaking to people, when he starts sharing things, even Mullah Jafar Naragi, who was this high eminent scholar, he's able to confound his arguments because he's got all this information from the Bab that he's sharing. Quite remarkable. There's also a guy named Mehdi who met the Bab, who ends up becoming a believer in the Bab and is martyred later on in Tehran. But this dream was seen, the Bab stayed there for 3 days.
David, when are we going to get invited to your next Nowruz party, which you hold in honor of your great-great-grandfather?
There was one on the 23rd of March, just gone. There was one recently, but because of the unfortunate conditions, nobody turned up. So yeah, maybe next year, if we can get rid of the thing, we'll do that. It will absolutely take place. But yes, thank you. We're going to go into this next chapter, which is the Bab's journey from Kashan to Tabriz. Now, the title may confuse you slightly. If you know your Iranian history, and especially if you've not read this book before, you'll know that the plan was that His Holiness the Bab was meant to be going from Shiraz up to Tehran. However, this isn't going to take place. This is all about his journey from Kashan to Tabriz, and Tabriz is right up here. So why is this going to happen? But this we'll read on and understand.
Chapter 12, the Bab's journey from Kashan to Tabriz. Attended by his escort, the Bab proceeded in the direction of Qom. His alluring charm, combined with a compelling dignity and unfailing benevolence, had, by this time, completely disarmed and transformed his guards. They seemed to have abdicated all their rights and duties, and to have resigned themselves to his will and pleasure. In their eagerness to serve and please him, they, one day, remarked, "We are strictly forbidden by the government to allow you to enter the city of Qom, and have been ordered to proceed by an unfrequented route directly to Tehran. We have been particularly directed to keep away from the Harami Masumeh, that inviolable sanctuary under whose shelter the most notorious criminals are immune from arrest. We are ready, however, to ignore utterly for your sake whatever instructions we have received. If it be your wish, we shall unhesitatingly conduct you through the streets of Qom and enable you to visit its holy shrine. The heart of the true believer is the throne of God, observed the Bab. He who is the ark of salvation and the Almighty's impregnable stronghold is now journeying with you through this wilderness. I prefer the way of the country rather than to enter this unholy city. The Immaculate One whose remains are interred within this shrine, her brother and her illustrious ancestors, no doubt bewail the plight of this wicked people. With their lips they pay homage to her, by their acts they heap dishonor upon her name. Outwardly they serve and reverence her shrine, inwardly they disgrace her dignity. Such lofty sentiments had instilled such confidence in the hearts of those who accompanied the Bab, that had he at any time chosen to turn away suddenly and leave them, no one among his guards would have felt in the least perturbed or would have attempted to pursue him. Proceeding by a route that skirted the northern end of the city of Qom, they halted at the village of Qomrod, which was owned by a relative of Muhammad Beg, and the inhabitants of which all belonged to the sect of the Baha'u'llah. At the invitation of the headman of the village, the Bab tarried one night in that place and was touched by the warmth and spontaneity of the reception which those simple folk had accorded him. Ere he resumed his journey, he invoked the blessings of the Almighty in their behalf and cheered their hearts with assurances of his appreciation and love.
After a march of 2 days from that village, they arrived on the afternoon of the 8th day after Nowruz at the fortress of Kinargird, which lies 6 farsangs to the south of Tehran. They were planning to reach the capital on the ensuing day and had decided to spend the night in the neighborhood of that fortress when a messenger unexpectedly arrived from Tehran bearing a written order from Haji Mirza Qasid to Muhammad Beg. That message instructed him to proceed immediately with the Bab to the village of Qulain, where Sheikh-e-Qulaini, Muhammad ibn Yaqub, the author of the Usul-e-Kafi, who was born in that place, had been laid to rest with his father, and whose shrines are greatly honored by the people of that neighborhood. Muhammad Beg was commanded, in view of the unsuitability of the houses in that village, to pitch a special tent for the Bab and keep the escort in its neighborhood pending the receipt of further instructions. On the morning of the 9th day after Nowruz, the 11th day of the month of Rabiul Thani, in the year 1263 AH, in the immediate vicinity of that village, which belonged to Haji Mirza Qasid, a tent which had served for his own use whenever he visited that place was erected for the Bab, on the slopes of a hill pleasantly situated amid wide stretches of orchards and smiling meadows. The peacefulness of that spot, the luxuriance of its vegetation, and the unceasing murmur of its streams greatly pleased the Bab. He was joined 2 days after by Sayyid Hussein Yazdi, Sayyid Hassan, his brother, Mulak Abdul Karim, and Sheikh Hassan Zanusi, all of whom were invited to lodge in the immediate surroundings of his tent. On the 14th day of the month of Rabiul Thani, the 12th day after Nowruz, Mullah Mehdi Ekoi, Mullah Muhammad Mehdi Khandi arrived from Tehran. The latter, who had been closely associated with Baha'u'llah in Tehran, had been commissioned by him to present to the Bab a sealed letter, together with certain gifts which, as soon as they were delivered into his hands, provoked in his soul sentiments of unusual delight. His face glowed with joy as he overwhelmed the bearer with marks of his gratitude and favor. That message, received at an hour of uncertainty and suspense, imparted solace and strength to the Bab. It dispelled the gloom that had settled upon his heart and imbued his soul with the certainty of victory. The sadness which had long lingered upon his face, and which the perils of his captivity had served to aggravate, visibly diminished. He no longer shed those tears of anguish which had streamed so profusely from his eyes ever since the days of his arrest and departure from Shiraz. The cry, "Beloved, my well-beloved," which in his bitter grief and loneliness he was wont to utter, gave way to expressions of thanksgiving and praise, of hope and triumph. The exultation which glowed upon his face never forsook him, until the day when the news of the great disaster which befell the heroes of Sheikh Tabarsi again beclouded the radiance of his countenance and dimmed the joy of his heart. I have heard Mullah Abdul Karim recount the following incident. My companions and I were fast asleep in the vicinity of the tent of the Bab when the trampling of horsemen suddenly awakened us. We were soon informed that the tent of the Bab was vacant, and that those who had gone out in search of him had failed to find him. We heard Muhammad Beg remonstrate with the guards. "Why feel disturbed?" he pleaded. "Are not his magnanimity and nobleness of soul sufficiently established in your eyes to convince you that he will never, for the sake of his own safety, consent to involve others in embarrassment? He, no doubt, must have retired in the silence of this moonlit night to a place where he can seek undisturbed communion with God. He will unquestionably return to his tent. He will never desert us. In his eagerness to reassure his colleagues, Muhammad Beg set out on foot along the road leading to Tehran. I too, with my companions, followed him. Shortly after, the rest of the guards were seen, each on horseback, marching behind us. We had covered about a maidan when, by the dim light of the early dawn, we discerned in the distance the lonely figure of the Bab. He was coming toward us from the direction of Tehran. "Did you believe me to have escaped?" were his words to Muhammad Beg as he approached him. "Far be it from me," was the instant reply as he flung himself at the feet of the Bab to entertain such thoughts. Muhammad Beg was too much awed by the serene majesty which that radiant face revealed that morning to venture any further remark. A look of confidence had settled upon his countenance. His words were invested with such transcendent power that a feeling of profound reverence wrapped our very souls. No one dared to question him as to the cause of so remarkable a change in his speech and demeanor, nor did he himself choose to allay our curiosity and wonder. For a fortnight the Bab tarried in that spot. The tranquility which he enjoyed amidst those lovely surroundings was rudely disturbed by the receipt of a letter which Muhammad Shah himself addressed to the Bab, and which was composed in these terms: "Much as we desire to meet you, we find ourselves unable, in view of our immediate departure from our capital, to receive you befittingly in Tehran. We have signified our desire that you be conducted to Maku, and have issued the necessary instructions to Ali Khan, the warden of the castle, to treat you with respect and consideration. It is our hope and intention to summon you to this place upon our return to the seat of our government, at which time we shall definitely pronounce our judgment. We trust that we have caused you no disappointment, and that you will at no time hesitate to inform us in case any grievances befall you. We fain would hope that you will continue to pray for our well-being and for the prosperity of our realm."
The Bab is in Gom, and we know by this point the military leaders are starting to like the Bab very much. As a sign of respect, now remember they're not allowed to enter the city. So what they do is they say to the Bab, "If you so wish, we will let you go and visit the Haram al-Masumeh." Okay, this is where the sister of the Imam Reza, the 8th Imam of Shia Islam, is buried. So he's buried in Mahshad and she's buried in Qom. So he says, if you want, you can go into the city. In Qom, this is where the majority of the ecclesiastical leaders are, the center of learning, kind of like the Oxford of study places for Shia Islam in Iran itself. So if you really want to go study, that's where you'll go study. So a very important place. And as I say, you have the Haram al-Masumeh who's buried there. So it's very, very important. Now they say to him, if you want, we will allow you to go into this place to go and pray and the rest of it. Also, bear in mind, if he did that, it was an inviolable sanctuary. So the Bab could have gone in there and he could have not been arrested. But the Bab says, actually, I have the utmost respect for her. However, I choose not to go into that city because I believe the level of corruption that around, the way people are acting and bringing her into disrepute and disgrace. So as much as I would love to go there, no thank you. Even though his love was so great and he was certainly praying around it, unfortunately he found that the situation was corrupt. From here they go on to the city of Gomrod. This is where Muhammad Beg Chaparchi has family there. They then go to Kinarged, which is 28 miles south of Tehran. The Bab is staying there and they're staying there overnight and everything's meant to be safe. One day they wake up and His Holiness the Bab isn't there for some reason. And they're like, oh my God, where's he gone? Now, we know that other Babis had also caught up with the Bab. We know that Abdul Karim Khan was there. We know that Hussein Yazdi. We know that Hassan al-Junasi was there. So there's other various people there. And they wake up to find that the Bab has disappeared. The Bab has gone. Now, some people are getting really scared. They say, look, the one person that we're in charge of, our prisoner, has escaped, and they start going crazy. Muhammad Beg Chaparchi, the person in charge of the whole team taking the Bab across, says, don't worry. Do you think the Bab would embarrass us for 1 second? Absolutely not. The night preceding this disappearance, there was a gift that was brought to the Bab. And Mullah Mehdi Akandi gives the Bab this letter and this gift from Baha'u'llah. The Bab is very happy, and then the next day he goes missing. They eventually find him coming back from the direction of Tehran. Now, no one knows exactly what happened. No one knows exactly where he went. Some people have brought it to the attention and said, well, maybe he went to meet Baha'u'llah. We do know that Abu Baha says that they actually never met. Physically, they never met. However, spiritually, there might have been something else that could have taken place there. Who knows exactly what's going on? But Abdul Karim, he gives us the story, and he explains that, we went following and we saw the Bab. So this brings us, the final thing that takes place is they receive a letter where the king basically says, look, we have to go on some business. We know you're going to come up to Tehran, but we've come up with this great plan. Yes, a wonderful plan. We're going to send you kind of on holiday. You're going to go to this place called Markul, which is all the way up here in the corner, which is known as a prison city. He's going to be put in prison, but they try and dress it up in a nice way, and they say, when we're back from our work, we will meet you. They do not know where to put the Bab. Haji Mirza Aghassi is the one who's devised this plan. It's his cousin, Ali Khan, who's the one who's going to be overlooking it. So this is why Markul was chosen, because he was related to Haji Mirza Aghassi. He would keep an eye on the Bab, and also because it was so distant. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, all the readers, people saying prayers. We will now shift over into our devotional portion.
Glorified art thou, O Lord my God. I implore thee by the onrushing winds of thy grace, and by them who are the daysprings of thy purpose and dawning place of thine inspiration, to send upon me and upon all who have sought thy face that which beseemeth thy generosity and bountiful grace, and is worthy of thy bestowals and favors. Poor and desolate I am, O my Lord. Immerse me in the ocean of thy wealth. Athirst, suffer me to drink from the living waters of thy loving kindness. I beseech thee by thine own self, and by him whom thou hast appointed as the manifestation of thine own being and thy discriminating word, unto all that are in heaven and on earth, to gather together thy servants beneath the shade of the tree of thy gracious providence. Help them then to partake of its fruits, to incline their ears to the rustling of its leaves, and to the sweetness of the voice of the birds that chanteth upon its branches. Thou art verily the help in peril, the inaccessible, the almighty, the most bountiful. Baha'u'llah.